I know why you're here. That girl from Argus.
Lila didn't find a lead on you. She found you.
We last saw Deadshot in the episode Home Invasion, and he's back once again for this season's first John-centric episode. This also isn't the only time Deadshot shows up this season. He prominently appears during the season's 16th episode, Suicide Squad, which will be getting a full breakdown. This is the first episode of the entire series to take the core team of Oliver, Dig, and Felicity outside of Starling City, and I'd say the episode actually takes advantage of that decently. I'm sure we've all gotten sick of American media treating other countries like lawless wastelands, but it works for a one-off episode like this. Russia is treated as being very different from Starling City, because while they're both filled with crime, people tend to avoid talking about Starlings. Russia's crime is very public. The episode's ending also mirrors its intro sequence in a great way. It might seem like a sequence I'd skip if I were doing a full breakdown, and yeah, I might have, but it reinforces the idea of John having Oliver's back, and the ending really calls back to that. These two have come a long way from their contrived split towards the end of Season 1. The way the episode justifies how Dig and Deadshot got in the same room is pretty dumb, though. Some random prisoners start a fight with John, but John gets put in the icebox for defending himself. That's more than a little contrived. I also don't like how the episode just doesn't acknowledge Isabel being on a plane with Lila for several hours. It seems a lot more focused on the relationship drama stuff than it does on the fact that Dig's face is bruised and there's a girl on the plane with multiple bruises that wasn't there on the flight they took to get to Russia. Considering how Isabel Roshev's name is on the list, the single most important document in the entire Arrowverse, how the hell does Oliver let this happen? And considering the explanation of the list from Malcolm in The Undertaking, I'm not sure how her name ended up there.
For years, we've been forcing the city's worst to do what is best. Leverage them to help us save the city, but it's not working.
I'm certain something got retconned when they were introducing this character. The Arrowverse wiki says her name was added to the list after Malcolm sank the Queen's Gambit, but then how the hell is her name in Oliver's copy, which used to belong to Robert? I appreciate the writers trying to make that detail with the list consistent, not to mention trying to use a Green Arrow villain in a show about the Green Arrow, but I think they should have just used a different character from the comics so there wouldn't be any inconsistency here. Maybe since this season has that Hive name drop, they should have used a new version of Queen Bee. I don't see any issue with making some modifications to that character when you're actively setting up their organization. Oh, and also, how the hell does Deadshot get out of that room? He is cuffed to a pipe coming from the ceiling, and the doors are locked. Yeah, with the introduction of Amanda Waller, they clearly wanted Deadshot around for the Suicide Squad, but maybe they should have had John use his weight to try and break the ceiling pipe to get a few swings at Deadshot. That would have been a really easy plot hole to fix. There's also a subplot in the present day about Thea needing to break up with Roy in order to possibly help Moira's image going into her trial, but you can pretty much cut it from the episode. It doesn't feel intrusive or unnecessary, but nobody would miss it if it was gone. The flashbacks this episode are pretty standard. You couldn't cut them from the episode completely, and they don't even take up much time. I just don't have anything really to say about them other than it's good to get the reveal of Ivo searching for the super soldier Mirakuru. Deadshot is just as conniving as ever in this episode. He spends most of his screen time just antagonizing John, and considering that that's his entire role as a character, he does a good job at it. He even name drops Hive just so that he can keep living rent-free in John's head. And speaking of John, the episode does a good job with him. I get not killing Deadshot before getting out of the gulag, but once he's got him on the side of the road, I really don't understand not taking his revenge. Yeah, it wouldn't have brought his brother back, but at least he would have felt like that chapter of his life was over and he wouldn't have to focus on it anymore. Minor gripe there. This is also the best episode of the show so far concerning the partnership of Dig and Oliver. I'm not really sure what the consensus on Arrow's take on Amanda Waller is, but I personally like this version of the character. She's the unfeeling, unflinching, calculating leader of Argus that places no value on human life, and that's even kept consistent during the Season 4 episode, AWOL. This episode finally gives Isabel Roshev some much needed depth, and once you've seen the rest of the season, you'll begin to realize that most of what she says to Oliver here is complete bullshit, and he falls for it anyway. That's not to say Oliver is an idiot, just that Isabel plays on the fact that he's lonely. Oliver's not stupid, Isabel's just smart. And she's gotta be pretty smart to convince the man that has an encyclopedic knowledge of everyone on the list to aggressively cuddle with her. We don't get much of Anatoly this episode, but at least David Nichol gives him some personality. Plus we get to see both the fun, charismatic side of him and the desperate side of him that wants to be saved during the episode.
Oliver Queen? My favorite American!
I do like that they put this grainy, kinda sepia-toned filter over the scenes in the gulag. Gives it a bit more atmosphere. The rest of the episode looks like average Arrow, just with a few more winter coats and hats and more blue skies as opposed to Starling's dark green color palette. Sucks that Oliver burns that bag of money at the top of the episode, though. Mans cannot be doing that when inflation is as bad as it is. In terms of the episode's overall importance, there isn't much contribution to the main plot here. A lot of what the episode sets up has to do with subplots like Diggs' war on Deadshot, Queen Consolidated's reputation, the Suicide Squad, and the burgeoning romance between Oliver and Felicity. It does ever so slightly move the plot of the flashbacks forward, though. The episode also features a name drop of Hive, which Arrow completely wastes by either not wanting to or not being allowed to introduce any members of Hive from other adaptations. Though it is worth noting that Damien Darhk is listed as a leader of Hive alongside Brother Blood, who's one of Season 2's main villains. Maybe the team wanted to use Hive this season, but decided that it would be narratively better to go the route of having Slade take the main villain role. And I would honestly agree with that sentiment if that was the case, due to how personal and cathartic that story ended up being. Outside of Hive's name drop here, though, there isn't another hint about them until the Season 3 finale, where Ra's al Ghul name drops Damien Darhk for the first time. And we all know how people felt about Damien Darhk.
No! 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 Fuck! Shit!
This was another good, entertaining episode of Arrow Season 2 that continues to excel at what the show already excels at.
They seen you, John.